Hello everyone. Today we'll be dealing with simplifying radicals. So first of all, I want to define what is a radical. A radical is just a square root of a number. You know, square root. For some of you that don't know what is square root, this is a good example of all the square roots we have. And I would advise you to learn this square root, know them at the back of your mind, because this will help you navigate through how to simplify them. So just like the way you know your multiplication table is very good, and it's more advisable to know at least from the square root of 1 to the square root of 169. So what is the square root of 1 is equals to 1? That means 1 times 1 is 1. So let's take the square root of 4. The square root of 4 is equals to 2. Why? Because 2 times 2 is 4. So square root means, like, square root of 9 means which number times which number is going to give you, or which number times itself is going to give you 9. So if we take like the square root of 25, that means you think of a number that's going to multiply itself and give you 25. Which number is that? That number is 5. So you put 5 there. So you don't write 5 times 5. No. Right? Or you don't write 5 times 5. So which number? Right? It's only one number that's going to multiply itself to give you 5. The same thing with the 49. Which number times itself is going to give you 49? 7. The same thing with square root of 100. Which number times itself is going to give you 100? So 10 is that number. So try to study it. I won't say memorize it. Try to study it like the way you study your multiplication table. If you can memorize it, because it's really good. Like it's gonna help you navigate into simplification of radicals. So like the way these radicals are called these radicals that you see here, they are called perfect squares. They are called perfect squares because they are perfect. Why are they perfect? Now let me give you another one. Let's say you have a square root of 5. Square root of 5, if you think about it very well, there's no number that is multiplying itself that is going to give you 5. Okay? There's no number that's multiplying itself to give you 5. So this has no square root. So that means it has no perfect square. It's not a perfect square. So it doesn't have any number. So let's say square root of 7, right? It's still the same thing. There's no number that's multiplying itself that's gonna give you 7. So please don't say 7 times 1, right? Because we're looking for a number that's multiplying itself. So it's not a perfect square. What about 12? 12 also is not a perfect square because there is no number that's multiplying itself to give you 12. But there are some things you can do to it to make it to work out with it a little bit. But before explaining how to simplify it, I wanna bring this to you. Whenever you have 1/3, let's say you solve one equation or you solve something and you get 1/3. In fraction you get 1/3, you just got the answer, right? That's the final answer. What if you got like 2/6? When you got 2/6, right, in a fraction, that means you need to break it down because you need to simplify it. There's a number that can go into 2 and that can go into 6, and that number is 2, and that number is 2 at the bottom, and then you get 1/3 as your final answer. So if you get 2/6, that doesn't mean you won, just that you didn't get the final answer. So you break it down to get a final answer 1/3. So it's the same thing we're doing here. There are some of the radicals that you're dealing with, you need to know how to simplify. You need to know how to simplify. So we're going to do the simplification, but the simplification is different. It's not how we do it with the fraction. I brought the fraction to just let you know that when, like the way you have the mentality of simplifying, reducing fraction is the same way we're dealing with over here too. So let's go ahead and start simplifying. We know 8, square root of 8, square root of 18, square root of 75, square root of 98, square root of 50 and 32. They are not all perfect squares. All the perfect squares that we have from 1 to 169 are this, right? There is no any There is not any one that is in between these. These are the perfect squares we have from 1 to 69. Right? From 1 to 13, these are the square roots we have. So root 18 is not a perfect square, right? But this root 18, when you simplify it, now simplification, the first step of simplification is to break it down. So you think of a number that's going to multiply 8. You know, you think of numbers that the factors of 8, right? I'll say the factors of 8. So which number do you think that's going to multiply? Like which number, right? It doesn't have to be a number because we know there's no number that multiplies itself to give you 8. But there is a number, like there are factors like 8 and 1, because 8 times 1 gives you 8. Which number? We have 4 times 2 is equal to 8. So when you are writing them down, make sure you write them in with square roots. Okay, make sure you write them with square roots. So we have 8 and 1 and 4 and 2. Right? So 8 and 1, 8 times 1 and 4 and 2. But in between these two, the first one, you have to look at it and see whether is we have a perfect square inside. What do I mean by perfect square? These ones, right? The ones that are perfect. So in between this root 4 and root 2, which one do you think is perfect? Of course, root 4 is perfect. So you're going to pick the one that has the perfect squares. So you're going to now break it down into root 4 times root 2. Now, 4 times 2 is 8. That means you split it into 2. You are simplifying it, right? So root 4, what is the square root of 4? Square root of 4 is 2. So you just have to write 2 root 2. And this is your final answer. So this is how we break or simplify radicals. So we're going to do a lot of examples to get more understanding of it. So let's take this one. This is interesting. I'm going to write 18. And then you think of a number. First of all, you have to make sure 18 is not a perfect square. If it is a perfect square, there's no meaning of doing this because you know the perfect square gives you an answer. 18 is not part of my perfect squares. But let's try and see whether we can simplify it. So what are the numbers that's going to multiply like each other to get you 18, or the factors of 18? So we have 18 and 1. We have, I always start with 18 and 1. It's the easiest. Although we don't need it though. So with 6 times with 3, because 3 times 6 is 18. And we have 9 times with 2. Now, you have 3 possible answers. So you have to pick the one that has the perfect square, you know, so that you can bring it there. So you take 18 and 1. It's not a perfect square. We take it out. There's no perfect square between 18 and 1. Although there's a 1 that which is a perfect square, but it doesn't make sense. The square root of 1 is 1, so you don't actually need it to be there. That's root of 6 and 3. Is 6 over here has a perfect square? I don't mean here. This is the answer. I mean the square root of 6, does it give you a perfect square? No. The square root of 3 doesn't give you a perfect square. No. So this is also out. What about this? Root 9 times root 2. Right? Root 9 is a perfect square because 3 times 3 is 9. So we're going to pick this. So you write it down over here. Square root of 9 times square root of times, let me put a multiplication because it's multiplying. Because when you multiply them, 9 times 2 is 18. Now that shows that it's correct. So what is the square root of 9 now? The square root of 9 is 3. So 3 root 2. So this simply means that square root of 8 is equal to 2 root 2. Just like the way I was saying it, when you have 2 over 6, it's the same thing as 1 over 3. Because when you simplify it, you get 1 over 3. It's the same thing. So the same thing work with simplification of radicals. Root 8 is the same thing as 2 root 2. Right? So what about the square root of 75? Of course, we know 75 is not a perfect square. So we'll look for factors of 75, which are 75 and 1. Although you don't need it, you know, you have 25 times 3. I believe so. That is what I have so far in my mind. And then I think we have 13 over 13, if I'm not mistaken, times 5. Is that 13? Or it's 15? 15 times 5, sorry. 15 times 5. So we have these 3 of them, right, so far. So think of the one that has perfect square, because this doesn't have perfect squares. You take it out. 75 times 25 times 3. I can fill a perfect square, which is 25. So I'm gonna consider it. I have to go look for other perfect squares. Sometimes there are 2, so you need to know which one to choose, right? But 75, 15, and 5, there's no perfect square. So is this the only one? So we have 25 times 3. Because 25 is a perfect square. It's over here. So square root of 25 is 5. So we have the answer as 5 root 3 as our final answer. Right? So good. What about the square root of 198? Right? Square root of 98. So 98 also, I believe, should have a lot of factors. So we have 98 and 1, which we don't need to write it. So what about 49 and 2? Right? Has a lot of factors. Don't think it has another one. So I don't know. You can look for other one. I don't want to dig down. But I believe I've seen the perfect squares already. Right? So I'm gonna write 49 is a perfect square. 49. 49 times root 2. Right? What's the square root of 49 is 7. It's over here. Right? That's why it's very good at the beginning to learn all this. Play with it. Then once you know it, this is gonna be more fun to you. Okay? So what about 50? 50 should be, of course, we know 25 times 2 is 50. So 25 times 2. Square root of 25 times the square root of 2. We know 50 times 1 won't work. And we know 5 times 10 2 won't work. Let me write it down here. 50. We have 50 times 1, which we know won't work. We have 10 times 5, which you know it won't work. And then we have 25 times 2, which you know is going to work. So this doesn't work, and you pick this. So always the beginning, learn how to do it this way. Okay? So 25 times square root of 25 is 5 with 2, and this is our final answer. What about 32? Roots of 32, which I want to use this to explain something very interesting. So what's the square root of 32? We know it's not a perfect square. It's your first check. Please do that. So when you finish that, you look for the factors of 32, which we know that 32 and 1. It's not necessary though, you know. 16 and 2. No, we have 4 times 8. We have 4 times 8. We have 16 and 2. So over here, the first one is not a perfect square. We all agree that is not a perfect square. The second one is a perfect square. The third one is also a perfect square, because square root of 4 is what? 2. And the square root of 16 is also what? 4. So the both of them have perfect squares. But there is something happening here. So if you pick 4 and 8, let's say you pick 4 and 8. If you pick 4 and 8, the square root of 4 is 2 root 8. Now you get 2 root 8. That means you need to simplify 8 again, because in 8, it has also a square root. So you need to break it down as root 4, root 2. And then you bring the 2 back there, because they are multiplying. Now you have the square root of 4 is 2 times 2, and then we have 4 root 2. That's one way of doing it, right? It's long. So the second one, which I'm going to write it down here, the square root of 16 times 2 is also the second square root that can work. So square root of 16 is 4 root 2. It gets you to the answer immediately, which concludes that if you have a lot of square root, maybe 2, maybe 3, maybe 4 or more in one problem, pick the biggest, the one that has the biggest square root, because you don't have to suffer again breaking it down. Okay, if you pick the smaller one, that means you need to break it down again. But if you pick the big one, like 16 is the biggest one, when you pick the biggest one, then it will lead you to the answer directly, so you don't have to break it down. It's just like doing 4 over 8. 4 over 8 has a fraction. When you want to simplify it, you can either do it two ways. You can either divide it by 2, and then you get 2 over 4, and divide it by 2, and then you get 1 over 2. Right? Or you can just go straight. Boom, boom. 4 divided by 4 divided by 4. Then you get 1, and then 8 divided by 4 is 2. You get the answer straightforward. So it's the same thing. Whenever you use the big number, you're going to get the answer directly. So make sure you always use the big number, so you don't have to do the extra step. Okay? It's more advisable to use the big number here, because you don't have to do extra steps. So we pick the square root of 16. Right? Square root of 16 times square root of 2. Square root of 16 is 4 root 2. So it's called 4 root 2. So sometimes some student might put root 2 or root 16. It's still correct. Okay? And then you have what's the square root of 2? Is 4. So do not write it at the front. So numbers don't go at the front. You don't write it this way. This is wrong. Okay? Numbers don't go at the front. Like when you get the square root and you get a number, this is a radical and this is a number. So the numbers don't come to the front. They go to the back. The back of the square root. So it's reading this way. It's just like saying x multiply 2. Are you going to tell me are you going to tell me the answer is x2, or are you going to tell me the answer is 2x? So it's the same thing. So the answer should be 2x. So the number, even though the number doesn't come first, you need to put the number at the back of the x to make it 2x. It's not x2. Right? Everybody agree with me. Right? So it's the same thing. So when you get in the square root of 16 is 4. You don't write it here. You write it over here. The same to over here. So like we got the square root of 9. Let's change it up. Let's write root 2 and we root 9. So when we have it this way, of course the square root of 9 is 3, right? And then don't write the 3 over here, because it's looking weird. It's not how to write it down, right? So you need to write it over here at the back, right? So I hope this makes sense. If you have any question, please let me know, because we have come to the end of this video on simplification of radicals. You actually need to know how to do this. Once you're good at this, and then the adding and subtracting is going to be easier, and also the multiplication and division is going to be easier. It's just like simplification. So please let me know if you have any question at the bottom, in the comment. Put the any comments you have, any comments, or you have any questions, please do let me know at the comment below. Please like the video, and you can share it as well with your friends. Thank you very much. Have a great day.